I never thought I'd be the person who destroys someone's marriage, but here I am, 3 months later, still questioning whether I did the right thing. My name is Jessica, and I'm a 27-year-old marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech company in Austin. What I discovered about my boss changed everything, and I'm still not sure if I'm a hero or a complete asshole. Let me paint the picture of where I worked. Meridian Tech Solutions was one of those rare family companies with ping pong tables, kombucha on tap, and mandatory fun events. Our CEO, Richard Hawthorne, was a 45-year-old married father of 3 who built the company from nothing over 15 years. He was the kind of boss who remembered your birthday, asked about your weekend plans, and genuinely seemed to care about work-life balance. Richard wasn't conventionally attractive, balding, slight dad bod, wire-rimmed glasses, but he had this charismatic energy that made people want to impress him. He spoke passionately about our mission to democratize technology for small businesses and regularly posted LinkedIn articles about leadership and family values. His office was covered with photos of his wife Amanda and their kids, twin 12-year-old boys and an 8-year-old daughter. I'd worked directly under Richard for 18 months as his marketing coordinator. He trusted me with sensitive projects, invited me to high-level strategy meetings, and I genuinely respected him as both a boss and a person. When people asked about my dream job, I'd say I wanted to build something like what Richard had created, a successful company that actually cared about its employees. The other key player in this story is Vanessa Chen, our 29-year-old head of business development. Vanessa was everything I wasn't: confident, stunning, with an MBA from Wharton and a track record of closing million-dollar deals. She wore designer clothes effortlessly, spoke 3 languages, and had this magnetic personality that made clients trust her immediately. Vanessa had joined our company 8 months before the incident. Richard personally recruited her from a competitor, offering a substantial signing bonus and equity package. From day one, it was obvious he was impressed by her, maybe too impressed. I started noticing small things in late January 2024. Richard, who usually kept his office door open, began having frequent closed-door meetings with Vanessa that weren't on the calendar. Their business lunches seemed to run longer than typical client meetings. During company events, I'd catch them in intense conversations that would stop abruptly when other people approached. At first, I attributed this to normal business dynamics. Vanessa was bringing in major clients, and Richard was probably just excited about her performance. But my desk was positioned where I could see Richard's office, and I began noticing patterns that felt off. Vanessa would arrive at work looking polished, but by afternoon, her lipstick would be gone and her hair slightly mussed. Richard would return from lunch meetings with cologne that smelled different from his usual scent. Their body language during team meetings became subtly intimate, lingering eye contact, slight touches when passing documents, inside jokes that excluded the rest of us. The smoking gun came on a Tuesday evening in March. I'd stayed late to finish a presentation for the next day's board meeting, and most of the office had cleared out by 7 p.m. I was printing documents when I realized I'd forgotten my laptop charger in the conference room where we'd had our afternoon strategy session. The conference room had glass walls, but the blinds were closed. As I approached the door, I heard voices inside, Richard's laugh and Vanessa's distinctive giggle. I was about to knock when I heard Richard say, "Amanda's taking the kids to her mother's this weekend. We could finally have a whole night together." My hand froze on the door handle. Vanessa's voice was softer, more intimate than I'd ever heard it. "I've been thinking about that hotel in San Antonio you mentioned. The one with the rooftop pool? I'll book us a suite," Richard replied. "We deserve this, Vanessa. You know how much you mean to me." I heard movement, chairs scraping, footsteps getting closer to the door. I panicked and ducked into the supply closet across the hall, my heart hammering so loudly I was sure they'd hear it. Through the crack in the supply closet door, I watched Richard and Vanessa emerge from the conference room. He had his hand on her lower back, guiding her toward the elevator. She was looking up at him with an expression I'd never seen her wear during business interactions, soft, vulnerable, completely smitten. They kissed in the hallway. Not a quick peck, but a deep, passionate kiss that lasted long enough for me to understand this wasn't a new development. This was an established relationship with genuine feelings involved. I sat in that supply closet for 20 minutes after they left, trying to process what I'd witnessed. Richard, the family man who showed me pictures of his daughter's soccer games, was having an affair with our star employee. Vanessa, who I'd admired for her professionalism and intelligence, was sleeping with our married boss. The immediate questions flooded my mind: how long had this been going on? Did anyone else know? Was Vanessa getting preferential treatment because of their relationship? And most importantly, what was I supposed to do with this information? I went home that night and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Amanda Hawthorne, who I'd met at company holiday parties. She was a warm, funny woman who clearly adored her husband. She'd pull me aside to thank me for taking such good care of Richard at work and show me photos of family vacations on her phone. The next few weeks were torture. I couldn't look at Richard the same way during our daily check-ins. When he'd mention weekend plans with his family, I wanted to scream. When Vanessa presented her quarterly numbers and Richard praised her exceptional performance, I wondered how much of her success was merit-based versus relationship-based. The affair became more obvious once I knew what to look for. They'd exchange knowing glances during meetings. Richard would find excuses to visit Vanessa's office multiple times per day. She'd text him during lunch, and he'd smile at his phone in ways that had nothing to do with business. I started documenting everything, not intentionally at first, but I found myself noting times, dates, and suspicious behaviors in my work journal. March 15th, Richard and Vanessa both called in sick, posted nothing on social media. March 22nd, Vanessa wearing new diamond earrings, Richard mentioning he had to run errands during lunch. March 28th, overheard Richard on phone saying "I can't wait to see you tonight" in tone he'd never use with Amanda. The turning point came in early April. Our company was bidding on a major contract with a healthcare startup. The presentation team was supposed to include me, our lead developer Marcus, and our sales director Jennifer. At the last minute, Richard announced that Vanessa would be taking the lead on the presentation instead of Jennifer. Jennifer had been with the company for 4 years, had extensive healthcare industry experience, and had been preparing for this pitch for months. Vanessa's expertise was in fintech, not healthcare. The decision made no business sense unless you factored in their personal relationship. Jennifer was devastated. She came to my desk after the announcement, holding back tears. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I've been working on this proposal for 2 months. My whole quarterly bonus depends on landing this contract." That's when I realized this affair wasn't just about two adults making poor personal choices. It was affecting other people's careers, creating unfair advantages, and undermining the merit-based culture Richard claimed to champion. I spent that weekend agonizing over what to do. I made lists of pros and cons, called my sister for advice, without naming names, and researched company policies on workplace relationships. Our employee handbook was clear: relationships between supervisors and direct reports had to be disclosed to HR to prevent conflicts of interest. On one hand, Richard and Vanessa were adults capable of making their own decisions. Their personal lives weren't technically my business. Exposing the affair would destroy Richard's marriage, potentially end both their careers, and create massive drama in our workplace. On the other hand, the affair was creating an unfair work environment where Vanessa received preferential treatment, other employees like Jennifer were being passed over for opportunities, and company policies were being violated. Richard was using his position of power to conduct an undisclosed relationship that affected business decisions. The decision was made for me when I overheard a conversation between two coworkers at the coffee machine. They were speculating about why Vanessa kept getting the best assignments and wondering if she was sleeping her way to the top. The rumors were already starting, and other employees were noticing the patterns I'd been documenting. If I stayed silent, the gossip would eventually reach Amanda anyway, but in a more painful, public way. At least if I reported it through proper channels, there was a chance the situation could be handled with some dignity. I decided to report the affair to our HR director, Patricia Williams, but I agonized over how to do it. Anonymous tip. Direct conversation. Email with documentation? I chose to schedule a private meeting with Patricia, bringing my documented observations but not mentioning the specific overheard conversation in the conference room. I framed it as concerns about potential policy violations and unfair treatment of other employees. I've noticed some interactions between Richard and Vanessa that seem unprofessional, I told Patricia during our meeting. I'm concerned that their relationship might be affecting business decisions in ways that aren't fair to other employees. Patricia took my concerns seriously and launched a discreet investigation. Within a week, she'd interviewed several employees who confirmed the suspicious patterns I'd reported. She also discovered that Richard had approved Vanessa's recent promotion and salary increase without going through the standard review process with the executive team. The confrontation happened on a Thursday morning. Patricia called Richard and Vanessa into separate meetings. By lunch, the entire office knew something major was happening. Richard's assistant was crying, Vanessa had left the building with a box of personal items, and Patricia had called an emergency all-hands meeting. Richard's termination was announced that afternoon. The official reason was violation of company policies regarding undisclosed relationships and conflicts of interest. Vanessa had already resigned, citing personal reasons and pursuing new opportunities. The immediate aftermath was brutal. Richard sent me a scathing text message, "I know it was you who reported this. You've destroyed my family and my career over something that was none of your business. I hope you're proud of yourself." Some coworkers were supportive, thanking me privately for addressing what they'd also noticed. But others were angry, accusing me of being vindictive or jealous. The office was divided between people who thought I'd done the right thing and people who believed I'd overstepped. Jennifer, ironically, was one of the harshest critics. "You cost two people their jobs," she told me. "Richard was a good boss who made one mistake. Now his kids will suffer because you couldn't mind your own business." The professional consequences were severe for everyone involved. Richard's departure left a leadership vacuum during a critical growth period. Vanessa's resignation meant we lost several major clients she'd been managing. The company's culture shifted from collaborative to suspicious, with employees second-guessing every interaction. 6 months later, I learned through LinkedIn that Richard and Amanda had divorced. He'd moved to Denver and was working as a consultant. Amanda had kept the house and primary custody of the kids. The divorce proceedings apparently revealed that the affair with Vanessa wasn't his first, there had been other infidelities throughout their marriage. This information made me feel both vindicated and horrible. Vindicated because it confirmed that Richard's pattern of behavior was deeper than one mistake. Horrible because I realized I'd been the catalyst for destroying a family, regardless of Richard's other choices. Vanessa landed a position at a startup in Silicon Valley within 2 months. Her LinkedIn showed her thriving professionally, posting about new achievements and industry recognition. She seemed to have bounced back from the scandal much faster than Richard. The ripple effects continued for months. Our company struggled with the leadership transition, and 2 other senior employees quit, citing the toxic environment that followed the scandal. Jennifer, despite her initial criticism of my actions, was eventually promoted to Vanessa's former role and received the healthcare contract opportunity she'd originally been denied. I stayed with the company for another 8 months before accepting a position elsewhere. The atmosphere never fully recovered from the upheaval, and I found myself constantly defending my decision to colleagues who had different opinions about what I should have done. Looking back, I've learned several difficult lessons about workplace ethics and personal responsibility. First, there's rarely a clean solution when personal and professional boundaries are violated. Every choice has consequences that extend beyond the immediate situation. Second, doing what you believe is right doesn't always feel good or lead to positive outcomes. I still wake up sometimes wondering if Richard's kids blame me for their parents' divorce, even though rationally I know that Richard's choices caused the situation, not my reporting of them. Third, workplace affairs create complications that go far beyond the two people involved. Other employees' careers, company culture, and business decisions all become collateral damage when personal relationships are in effect professional judgment. If I could go back, I'm honestly not sure I'd make the same choice. The part of me that values fairness and transparency believes I did the right thing by reporting policy violations that were affecting other employees. But the part of me that witnessed the human cost, the divorce, the career destruction, the family upheaval, wonders if I should have found a way to address the situation more privately. My advice for others facing similar situations: document everything, consider all stakeholders who might be affected, and remember that inaction is also a choice with consequences. If workplace relationships are creating unfair advantages or policy violations, those issues need to be addressed regardless of the personal relationships involved. But also remember that being technically right doesn't shield you from the emotional and professional fallout of your decisions. People will judge you for speaking up just as harshly as they might judge you for staying silent. The most haunting part of this experience is realizing how much I didn't know about the people I worked with every day. Richard, who I respected and trusted, was living a double life. Vanessa, who I admired professionally, was willing to compromise her integrity for a relationship. My coworkers, who I thought shared similar values, had wildly different opinions about ethics and loyalty. The affair might have continued indefinitely if I hadn't exposed it, with Richard continuing to make biased business decisions and other employees paying the price. But it also might have ended naturally without destroying 2 careers and a marriage. 3 years later, I still don't have a clear answer about whether I was right or wrong. What I do know is that secrets in professional environments rarely stay secret, and the longer they're hidden, the more damage they tend to cause when they're finally revealed. So I'm asking you, am I the asshole for exposing my boss's affair? Was I protecting workplace fairness and company policies, or was I a vindictive employee who destroyed lives over something that wasn't my business? Would you have reported the affair if you'd been in my position? How do you balance loyalty to individuals versus responsibility to the larger organization? Because honestly, I'm still trying to figure out if I'm the hero or the villain in this story, and your perspective might help me understand what I should have done differently. What would you do if you discovered your boss was having an affair that was affecting other people's careers? Would you speak up or stay silent, and how would you live with either choice?